we good?
Recording in progress.
All right, calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, September 14th, 2022. All right, first let's start with roll call.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and take roll call. So we have Chair Grumbine,
Present.
Vice Chair House is absent, Commissioner Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Dorden,
Here.
Commissioner Drury,
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Here.
Commissioner Lenvig is absent, Commissioner Manuel,
Here.
and Commissioner Uli.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. On to item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. So anyone in the live audience wanting to come forward on public discussion or public comment, I mean? No, going once, twice? All right, let's go to virtual.
All right, thank you, commissioners. So I'll go ahead and go over virtual public comment. So at this time, I don't see anyone joining by Zoom, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, we are on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission meeting August 31st, 2022.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, motion
Second.
by Uli, second by Commissioner Drury. Under discussion, or to staff for, actually, sorry, I was thinking of it as a consent calendar thing. Never mind. Under discussion, any edits?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
let's see, I think it was item 3, the Paseo. I noticed that in the commissioner's comments, there was the majority of the commissioners are fighting for the Paseo. And I thought it was better than fighting in the Paseo, which was incipient at that particular meeting.
It could be
Thank
both
you.
and. All right, thank you.
Chair
Commis-
Grumbine?
Yes, Commissioner
Is
Ensberg.
it possible, thank you. Can we get these screens also working?
They do, but I don't think they
They
show
don't,
what's
do
up
they
there.
not do this?
Yeah, so just a clarification, when we are projecting from the staff computer, it won't show up on these screens. These screens are only connected to this computer right here, so that's why you don't see it show up.
All right, any edits? All right, on the minutes, okay. In that case, let's have a roll call vote.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Abstain.
and Chair Grumbine.
All right,
All right, motion passes.
all right. On to approval of the consent calendar for September 14th, 2022. All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Uli, second by Commissioner Drury. All right, to staff for summary.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. Let's see, we had one item on consent today. It was for 35 State Street. The decision was for project design approval and final approval. And the reviewers were Vice Chair House and Commissioner Manuel.
All right, any comments by the commissioners reviewing it?
Nope, very simple.
All right, in that case, any other discussion by the commission? All right, let's have a roll call vote for consent calendar.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel, Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Great, motion carries.
All right, on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Any announcements?
I just have one announcement, just to remind you again that the annual recruitment for city advisory groups is underway. To remind the commission and the public as well. Let's see, applications are live now, and they must be submitted by Monday, October 10th. They can be found at the City of Santa Barbara Careers page, webpage. And any resignation would be due to be submitted by Wednesday, September 21st.
And just as out of curiosity, do we have any? We have full HLC, so there's no spots for that. And then there's there any upcoming terms?
We have 3 terms on HLC that are up, so
Okay,
those are open.
all right,
I'm one.
okay.
Yes, and I just want to clarify that the terms that are up, we've contacted all of the commissioners and let them know. And just to clarify again that when you can reapply, certainly reapply, you do have to go through the interview process at council again. And so we just want to make sure that if you're interested, please submit your applications and just be aware of the interview dates at council. You're familiar with it. You all had to do it before, but it is a little, it's not too much time investment. And what's nice is that the applications are online for the first time this year, so it's a little bit more streamlined.
All right. Great, thank you. Okay, any other announcements?
Yes.
I'll go Commissioner Ensberg and then to you, Vice Chair House,
Thank you.
because you were late.
I know. I apologize. But your vice chair is here.
Yes. You are.
I don't know if this is the right time to say this, but I need to leave early today after item number 3. After item number 3, I need to leave. And also, I just want to let you know that I did go back and watch all of the hearings for item number 3, Planning Commission and HLC, the previous hearings.
Okay, thank you. And we'll reiterate that once we get to that item as well, but thanks for letting us know that you won't be here for item 4.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And
Mr. Chair,
Vice
don't
Chair
forget about
House,
me,
that's right.
even though I was late. Have you announced the architecture exhibit coming up on Friday?
oh yes, I did not. There's an architecture exhibit on Friday at the Thompson Gallery, and there's some architects who are wannabe artists having some of their work there, including our previous Commissioner Mahan and a few of the architects at my office as well. So, and Mark Appleton spearheaded it, and there's a great video. So, yeah, for those interested. Yeah, and there's wine. So, now all of a sudden, everyone.
I could forward a link to everybody that Henry Lenny sent me.
Oh, great. Yeah, and Henry Lanning, and yeah, I'm sure you'll see some familiar names there. So, great. Other announcements, etc. All right, let's go on to item E, subcommittee reports. So, any subcommittee reports? Once, twice. All right.
Chair Grumbine?
Yes.
I have a question
Commissioner
about the subcommittees. Not that I'm looking for more work to do, but are we supposed to, is each commissioner supposed to be serving on a subcommittee, or how does that work?
Yes. So typically, the normal, yes, for at least one subcommittee, we normally ask, usually a handful, and our typical time for review is the first meeting of the month usually, or meeting of the year. We usually go through the list and push and pull it around based on commissioners leaving, commissioners coming, etc. Because when you came in midstream for us and we didn't have a previous spot, we don't have any empty spots empty. We don't have any needs directly right now. We're covered, but I think come January, that's when we're going to be shifting around and asking you to be on things. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Probably
you.
5 committees.
Yeah, exactly.
Just wondering, thank
By
you.
that point, she'll already be 6 months in, so we can give her 6
put
or
her to
7.
work.
Yeah. So, thank you for asking about that. All right. Any other subcommittee discussion? All right. Let's go to item 1, archaeology report for 220 North Lacumba Road. All right. Come on up. So this is a request for acceptance of a Phase 1 Archaeological Resources Report prepared by David Stone of Stone Archaeological Consulting. The report was reviewed by Dr. Glassow, who agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. So, welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Stone.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, there I am. Thank you so much.
So, if you could just give us a quick
will.
summary.
I actually brought my laptop in case you have specific questions
Oh, nice.
about the report. But
Okay.
this was a relatively straightforward assessment. The property, as you're very familiar with, is out in North Lacumba. It's a very developed area previously, a lot of retaining walls showing extensive grading to flatten out the topography to create the existing retail and commercial out there, actually just offices. So our survey was limited to not as much ground surfaces as we normally would have available, but we did inspect those very clearly, and those gave us sufficient understanding of the potential for archaeological materials to be on the surface and not disturbed. We did not find any, and the background research also showed that there are no recorded archaeological sites within the vicinity. The closest site is over 1,300 meters away, which is several thousand feet. So given our reliable results and the extensive ground disturbance that's indicated at that site, we recommended, and Dr. Glasso apparently supported, our recommendation that no impacts on archaeological resources would occur.
Great. Thank you. All right, if that completes your summary, let's go to public comment on this item. Any member of the public wishing to comment on the archaeology report in the room? Let's see if there's any members of the public. No? All right, so let's see if there's any virtual.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So at this time, I don't see anyone joining via Zoom, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. So I'll turn it over back to you.
All right, thank you. All right, so to the commission for questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Once, twice? All right, and would someone like to make a motion?
I'll
make a
move we-
motion to accept the report as submitted.
Second.
All right, motion by Vice Chair House, second by Commissioner Uli. Under discussion, any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye,
Okay, motion carries.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Success.
Thank you. As always, it's an unmitigated pleasure to present.
Not as always. All right, so we are 8 minutes ahead for the next one. Do we have the applicant in the room for item 2, archaeology report for 1426 Bath? Okay, so why don't we go ahead and go with this? So this is a request for acceptance of a Phase 1 Archaeological Resources Report prepared by Allison Jacqua of Jacqua Consulting. The report was reviewed by Dr. Glasso, who agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. All right, welcome. If you could introduce yourself for the record and then give us a sort of a brief summary of your...
My name is Allison Jaffa.
Oh, yeah. And lean, you might have to lean forward. Yeah,
Should be glowing green. There we go.
all right.
So this is the house at 1426 Bath Street, and I do understand that historic report was made by another company, so I really focused on the archaeological, prehistoric, and possibly historic remains on the surface. The area in question, it's going to be a 650 square foot garage built onto an area that doesn't have a structure on it now, and I understood that the depth of disturbance was going to be, in my report it says 48 inches, but it's going to be under that, so 24 inches. But I erred on the side of caution because I wasn't sure. I didn't have the plans for that at the time that I did the report. So none of the information that I received from the Central Coast Information Center came back positive, so there was no area. It was a 2.5 mile search. There were quite a few historic houses in the area, and there's one next door to it as well. But and then there is also a privy that's on the property, but it's where the garage is now. That's going to be demoed. So my ground survey came back negative as well. There was no evidence of any kind of cultural remains on the surface. And then I did some boot scrapes in areas because there wasn't a lot of exposed surface. I went in areas around the property where I could see exposed surface. It's been greatly disturbed over the course of the past maybe 50, 60, 70 years or so, but that all came back negative. So I had my report suggested that there was nothing and that it would be good to, no mitigation necessary.
Great. All right. Thank you. So if that concludes your summary, okay, well, let's go to public comment on this item. Any member of the public in the room wishing to comment on this item? Once, twice. All right. On to virtual public comment then.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So at this time, I do see a few members of the public joining by Zoom. So if you would wish to give public comment on this item, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and then I will call on you. All right, so I don't see any hands raised for this item, and we didn't receive any written correspondence. So I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
Great, thank you. All right, to the commission for any questions or comments on the report. Questions or comments? Everyone good? All right, so I'll look for a
I'll
motion.
make a motion to accept the Phase 1 archaeological report.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Uli, second by Vice Chair House. Any other discussion? All right, let's have a roll call vote.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we are 13 minutes ahead. So do we have to wait till 10 or is 15 okay?
I think we're just
Oh, wait.
17 or 18 minutes ahead. So
Okay.
we have to wait till 1:50 before we can hear the next item.
Okay. And I'm assuming you guys are for the next item. Do you have all your team here as well? Okay, so we can get started in let's have a 3-minute recess. All right. Dun-na-na-na. right, let's call back to order Historic Landmarks Commission. And we'll be on to item 3. This is a continued item for project design approval. 630 Chapala Street. Project design approval is requested. Project findings are required. Oh, sorry, I should have read the first part. Project site is located at the EPV District 1. Proposals for construction of a new 3- and 4-story mixed-use development with 5,000 square feet of commercial space and 31,000 square feet of residential space, consisting of 39 rental units proposed under the AUD incentive program. A voluntary lot merger between 630 Chapala Street and 25 West Ortega Street is proposed, as well as an ingress-egress easement with 17 West Ortega Street. The project received a concept review by Planning Commission and an approval of a community benefit height exception to allow the project to exceed 48 feet in height. Project design approval is requested. Project compatibility findings are required. The project was last reviewed August 4th, 2021. And there were historic significance reports as well. All right, so with that, welcome.
Chair Grumbine? Sorry.
Oh,
I need
yeah,
to
sorry.
recuse myself for conflict of interest with the applicant team.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Mannion. All right, so now we will go to the applicant.
Great.
Please introduce yourselves for the record and,
My name's Tom Meany,
okay.
architect. Al Windsor for my office.
Sam Maphis, landscape architect.
All right, great. So why don't we'll go through the motion from last time, hit all the points, and then if you can do your presentation, you'll have 15 minutes, and to please make sure to hit on those points for us. Or
Sure.
Tell us how you address
Absolutely.
them. Okay. All right. So the motion was to continue to the Planning Commission with the following comments. The Commission appreciates the development and design of the project and finds that it is refined and moving in the right direction. The design is very beautiful and continuing to improve. 2, story poles are appropriate for this project, making the public aware of the project and its size. A modified version that shows the heights of the 4 corners is acceptable. Looking at the north elevation at Ortega Street, the Commission suggests that story poles can be installed for the left building at the left and right corners at the street, with no need for story poles at the rear corners. For the corner building, provide story poles at the left and right of the 4-story section and show the height of the 3-story at the corner. The story poles will be to the eave line. For the west elevation at Chapala Street, the same story pole locations will apply. Number 3, the project is sensitive to adjacent historic resources. 4, the landscaping components of the project, per the comments from the previous meeting, still needs to be developed per the ordinance requirements. 5, the roof plan needs to be updated to show that the parapet wall around the deck also exceeds the allowable height and is included in the request for the height exception. 6, the reduction of the height of the project by 2 feet is appreciated, and the Commission finds the building is even more reasonable in terms of height. 7, provided a 3-dimensional video model of views looking up and down the street, show the street level and aerial views. 8, in general, the Commission finds the design is positive and the elevations are compatible and fitting well within the context. Before making the findings, the Commission needs to see the 3-dimensional model and story poles in order to see how the mass, bulk, and scale fits in its context. 9, restudy the bridge structure on the Chapala Street elevation with a suggestion to restudy the wood beams. 10, the Commission makes general comments regarding the project compatibility analysis of findings as follows. A, the project design is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to its location within the city. B, the design of the project is compatible with the desirable architectural qualities and characteristics that are distinctive of Santa Barbara and of the particular neighborhood surrounding the project. C, the size, mass, bulk, height, and scale of the project are appropriate for its location and neighborhood. The height has been reduced and the Commission feels it is compatible in that regard. D, the design of the project is appropriately sensitive to adjacent landmarks or other nearby designated historic resources. The building steps down on the corner from the historic resource and has architectural compatibility, therefore it is sensitive. E, the scenic public vistas are not relevant to this project. The Macy's building is taller and the project is not a big impediment to the view corridors. F, the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping is located in the dense downtown area, and while landscaping is sparse, it is appropriate to the area and the beautiful courtyard landscaping is provided. Additional landscaping requirements will be met as the project moves forward. Motion by House, second by Mahan, 7-0. Edmonds and Manuel were absent. The motion carried. All right. And with that, Commissioner Ensberg, you had mentioned that you've seen watched all the videos for the previous of the project. So she will be for both questions and comments and vote. So with that, anything else before we get started?
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
may, so I just want to acknowledge that we do have a case planner for this project, Megan Arciniega, who's here if you have any questions. She submitted a memo regarding this and the just details about the concept review at the Planning Commission. So if you have any questions, she's here to answer them.
All right, great. And yeah, maybe we had the Planning Commission comments in our packet. Maybe we will after the presentation just touch a little bit on them as well, just so and that might end up factoring into our discussions. So, all right. So with that,
Great.
Yeah.
So a broad brush overview of who we are and what we are, and then I can touch on what's happened since we've last met briefly. So just a refresher, so this is a property that my grandfather bought in the 50s, and he operated a Volkswagen dealership there and passed it on to his son, who operated it until about 1990. He and my mom have been property owners since then, and when Volkswagen left the site, we've been thinking as a family, what's the best use for the development of the property? So between all the grandkids, we just have a lot of horsepower in terms of architects and land planners and business people and opinions, and so it's a good group to work, and we all get along, so it's a good group to really work with. The original concept was basically to have this pedestrian-friendly project, which is so much of what I've fallen in love with Santa Barbara, and one of the things that worked in our favor was the requirement or the lack of requirement from the city to provide on-site parking. So that was a blessing in terms of allowing us to come up with a concept that has paseos, courtyards, and arcades. But there is a functional need for parking as it relates to the commercial and the residential use. And so one thing that's really worked in our favor is the Cousins own the Wildcat parcel next door, and there's a big chunk of property behind them that historically has been used for car storage as part of the dealership. There's a narrow alley that accesses that car storage area, and so we're widening that by creating an easement onto the dealership property to allow that to become a proper parking lot. And so there's 27 spaces available back there for the commercial and the residential use on the adjacent parcel. So in concert with the 27 spaces there, Lot 10 is a block away, and that's grossly underutilized, and for $140 a month, there's parking available there. So we don't think parking is going to be an issue, and so that allows us to really free up with a concept that is really pedestrian friendly. And so the initial concept was having paseos coming in from the parking area. Can we go to the site plan? Now, if I use this little laser, is this something that's of use, or is it an irritant?
it's better to use the mouse.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And the mouse has some pretty good reach, so
you can reach over
whoever's driving.
Yeah, so here's our site plan. So the original concept was, where are you, Mouse? Bringing Paseo in off the parking area, Paseo off of Ortega, Paseo off of Chapala into the central courtyard. And so that sort of pedestrian concept kind of sets itself up for, buildings 1, 2, 3, and building 4 being the existing service bay space that is quite special, we wanted to keep. Additionally, to make this project attractive for people walking down State Street and even people from across the street at Lighthouse Coffee and such, is to have this nice deep 11-foot arcade that goes along the length of the sidewalk that is 11 feet into our property. This one is 70 feet long, and this one is 35 feet long, because we really want to have users in these two commercial spaces that are pedestrian related, food related, and having this feature, and a couple potential tenants I've talked to, they say is what makes the space viable. So for us, this is really important to have activity and light and color to attract people from State Street, and just to really make it for a presentable and a viable project for the commercial use. So up above we have our 3 and 4 stories of the residential. I should let you do this, Al. Why don't you just kind of scroll through the floor plans really briefly? I don't think I need to point on anything besides that first one. Maybe just go to maybe just that plan sheet. That one right there tells the story, because that has all 4 plans. So we have, lower levels are basically apartments that face out towards the street. One thing I really like about this layout is we got a lot of corner units, which is great. And we don't have many units that look across to other units. They're basically looking away and out from the project. So there'll be great sunlight into the courtyard, some really nice, attractive units. And our fourth story component is only 3 units on the top floor, and the amount of square footage that's over the 48-foot height limitation is very small. We only go up to 51 feet, and that's with our hip roof configuration. So it's really nominal in terms of what it is we're doing in terms of our exceeding our height. Maybe if you jump to the landscape plan, then we can kind of go back to the models and such from there. There it is. So Sam, you want to talk about the landscape concept?
Yeah, so the landscape, utilizing the tall, beautiful king palms all along Chapala Street and the jacarandas that are on Ortega Street, we would be infilling 2 where there aren't any in the middle by the Paseo and framing the Paseo from the Ortega side with the jacarandas. And then there are substantial king palms on the property, 5 of them in general. There are 2 doubles and 1 single that we're going to be utilizing and boxing and storing and bringing into our courtyard design. So the open space coming in from Ortega and Chapala is throughout the large paseos, as Tom described. We have planting on both sides and pots and site furniture like benches coming in. We have vines coming up over the bridges. We also are utilizing those big, beautiful multi-trunk king palms on the interior. So pulling that Chapala Street feeling of landscape palm tree motif into the middle of the property and into the center courtyard with a nice fountain. The enhanced paving on the interior is going to be a nice Spanish tile and stone around the centerpiece with kind of some inlaid paving special treatments. The Chapala Street hardscape will be the Chapala Street guidelines determined a 2x2 concrete paver that is utilized all along Chapala, so we'll be repeating that. And turning the corner all along the top section on Ortega will be the same element, so that unifying consistent paving will be all along the frontage of the building on both north and west side. And through the center we'll have our tile bordering the entry of each paseo, and in the center we'll also have sandstone, as I mentioned before. So we do have also some planters on the south side. We're utilizing the stone wall that exists now on the east side of the building is quite a handsome coursing stone wall, and that will be disassembled and reassembled as our south privacy wall against the south property, and that light will create a very nice south-oriented courtyard for those units back there. We're going to be putting in large king palms in those planters. We do have some bioswales coming down to take care of some of the stormwater in the courtyards and in those planter areas, so we'll be filling the parkways and the planter areas on both east and west with lush planting, all low water use for sustainability, and we really think that we've taken every opportunity to embellish the landscaping in the areas of the Paseo and the outsides of the building perimeter with some very enhanced paving to accentuate the exceptional architecture. I think that kind of takes care of most of the thoughts on the landscape.
So why don't you go to the models now?
Those photographs are of the existing palms that we're going to be utilizing.
Yeah, so those are our existing conditions. And here are before and after conditions, which is something that the board hasn't seen before. This is something that we've added to our presentation. So that's looking from the corner diagonal from the project, before and after, looking towards the proposed. Same from looking up the street in front of the Sonos building. Yeah, so that wall is historic, and so we're disassembling that and rehabbing it into a different location. So that's looking down Ortega Street with the Macy's building and parking to the left, as you recognize.
Existing jacarandas on
Yeah.
that side.
So we're taking out 1 jacaranda and we're adding 3 new ones. Okay, why don't you go to the, Yeah, that one right there. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So these are the ones you've seen before. So nothing's really changed from an architectural design standpoint. When we went through planning, basically the areas that they wanted more detail on were the parking adjacent, which we give them. The big issue was the storm drainage, and we've got that resolved through Ashley Vance. And then some minor stuff regarding parking layouts for the bikes and electrical meter rooms and things like that. So it was a pretty easy process to get through planning once we got the civil and the parking taken care of. So architecturally, nothing has changed in that regard. So here's the Chapala Street elevation at the bottom, looking down Ortega from the top left, and then looking up from across the street from the Sonos building on the top right. So why don't you go to the story poles, and then we'll pull up the video. Yes, let me do the zoom out. There you go. So the top photo is looking up at the project from below at Chapala Street, the Macy's to the left, and the Sonos building to the right. And so you see how the existing palm trees are actually taller than the building, which is nice. And the tallest tree is opposite the tallest part of the building. When you go down one. And then the other picture I basically took from sitting at coffee the other day, and I can barely make out the story poles, but there they are there. So they're really not very tall compared to the adjacent landscaping and architecture. And then once you pull up the video, Al. Yeah, can you max the screen? This is where you normally serve wine and cheese for this part. Yeah.
Heading west.
So now it's our building on the left. So the entrance to the parking, we have the deep arcade below. And then building 2, I guess we call it, coming out to the corner. There's the Amazon truck there. Gives it scale.
It's pretty realistic.
And a quick peek into the Paseo. Oh, yeah.
The ocean disappeared.
So that's where we've been and where we are, basically.
Great. Does that complete your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, so now we'll go to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item in the room, please. Oh, sorry, my microphone was off. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item in the room, please come forward. And if you haven't filled out a speaker slip, you can do so afterwards if you want to speak. Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah? Oh, okay. Why don't you
Yeah,
come
pardon me.
and
Just
do a-
for anybody who's not attending in person, they can't hear you, so we'll need you to use the microphone. So even
It's really not that scary.
it's not. It's not.
Okay. Are you sure? Okay. You can also call in and then just do it via virtual. Yeah.
Go outside, use your cell phone. and call.
Yell real loud.
All right. Well, if there's no one else that wants to public comment from the room, okay, let's go to virtual.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So at this time, I do see a few members of the public joining by Zoom. So if you would like to speak on item 3, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, and then I will call on you. So I do see one hand raised from Aaron Carroll. I'm going to go ahead and send you an unmute request, and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm generally, I live at Paseo Chapala, so I look to the southeast towards this project, and I think this is going to be a nice project. Tom does great Spanish buildings. I just have a few comments. The shade trees on the south side, I would encourage Sam to think about maybe using a canopy tree instead of palms there. It's a really sunny side of the building, and those patios might need more shade there. And maybe some additional vines on the Chapala side, just to kind of soften the brightness of the building from Chapala. And then the massing of this building, there are going to be mountain views lost from Chapala Street, no doubt about that. I think the 4-story height is fine. I just think that it would be more appropriate if building B, which is the building more towards State Street, towards Wildcat, had the 4-story element instead of the 4-story element that's right on Chapala. But that's up to this board to determine if that's appropriate or not. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right.
All right, thank you, Chair Groundbine and Commissioners. So at this time, I don't see any more people with their hands raised for this item, and we didn't receive any written correspondence. So I'll turn it over back to you.
All right. Thank you. All right, so let's go to the commission, but before we get to questions, if we could have that a brief comment summary from Planning Commission thoughts as well from staff. All right.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Chair, members of the commission. So we went back to the Planning Commission. So this is an AUD project. I'll start there. On a lot size over 15,000 square feet and utilizing the priority housing overlay density. Those two requirements kick it to a requirement to go to Planning Commission for concept review. They provide comments to your commission on the general plan consistency and also design comments as they feel appropriate. Those comments are then passed on to you in your deliberations today. They were provided to you in a staff report attachments. Overall, the Planning Commission had positive comments. They really appreciated the design and the siting of the proposal. They felt comfortable with it being clearly consistent with general plan policies. They understood that this project was taking advantage of the no parking for the residential uses. So I do want to clarify that there is a parking requirement for the commercial uses, and the applicant is satisfying those requirements with the adjacent property that Mr. Meany spoke of. So those are provided. There are bike requirements, bicycle facility requirements. The Planning Commission asked the applicant consider electrifying some of those spaces or providing additional bicycle amenities to consider those e-bikes or even scooters that don't necessarily fit into the standard bike racks. Definitely not a requirement, just looking forward into the future and this being excited about this being a pedestrian friendly project. So they do meet all the zoning requirements, the exception of height, as Mr. Meany described. The height exception was approved. There weren't really concerns in that regard. They felt that the design overall was appropriate. I think that's a bit as far as high-level comments. Each commissioner gave individual comments. You'll see that in the minutes. But if you have any specific questions.
Sure. And I did have one specific question. I just wanted to maybe look at in site plan. There was, I want to say there was a comment about noise and adjacent functions of the, and if you can show in plan where that was, just so for understanding of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the overall site plan shows the adjacent buildings.
So I can add to that. Yeah, there's an existing nightclub on Ortega Street, and it's in the downtown area. So it's expected that when there's, housing is allowed in the downtown area, we encourage it, the mix of uses, but any resident would have to be aware of their surroundings. The concern came from, in part, the nightclub. There you go. Owner just not wanting to get in the situation of having complaints directed at his business because tenants move in after the fact and are seeing this conflict of uses.
So where that mouse is hovering, that's where it is. Okay.
Right,
Gotcha.
right. So in terms of noise, we're in the downtown area and in commercial. There isn't the noise restriction beyond the general citywide that at the property limits, they would be limited to certain hours of having noise cut off. That exists regardless of your surrounding uses. So we don't have nightclubs going all night, and the noise sources are indoors for a reason. So although it's understandable, we understand where he was coming from, there isn't a policy or inconsistency item there or zoning. Noise in general, if there are violations of our city noise ordinance, that's an enforcement issue separate from the project. So it doesn't have any zoning or policy implications.
Great, thank you. Any other any questions regarding the planning commissioner stuff before we go on? We might come back, but, okay, thanks. Great, all right, so let's go to the commission let's begin with questions about the
Chair?
project. Commissioner Drury.
There's just a few questions in general. How does this project compare height-wise with the bigger projects further south on Chapala? Talking about there's like 3 major projects that came before us.
Yeah, I haven't evaluated that.
Okay. But 51 feet is the maximum that you're...
Right, like I say, because of the hip roof configuration,
Right.
why don't you go to the roof plan? I'll show you the part of the building that exceeds that number. It's really small. I think one down. There's the plan that has it hatched. Where did that go?
I think I saw it with the blue.
Yeah, so that's the part of the project, the hatched section, that's over 48 feet. So you're not even going to see it from the street based on the roof form and the height of the buildings.
And actually, if you could point it out in the perspective from across the street, I think that would be helpful.
Or the elevations.
Or
We
the
have a
elevation.
line on the elevations. right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just like when you zoom into that top left, or either one of those, the top left building. Yeah, just the building in question.
So then, could you hover over the line that's 48 foot?
Yeah. Keep going.
Just point to it on the paper.
It's that one right there, cutting off the hip.
So we're talking about from here to here.
Yeah, the upper part of the
Yeah.
cable. And then can you go to the perspective as well and just kind of point it out? Because I think you can see both of those in the perspective of where they would be.
So you don't even see it on that top one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically on top of either of those sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think this is an issue. I just wanted to, if you had made a comparison with those. And so the wall will be moved, the blocks will be numbered, it'll be rebuilt, we hope.
Yes, I mean,
It's-
the blocks are dimensionally very thick, so we're not sure if we're going to cut those into, 4-inch sections and put them on CMU, but we're going to rebuild them. And the fact that they're just running bond, it's going to be
And that's
pretty
that
easy.
whole south side of the project.
Yeah, because right now it goes. Right now the wall goes. Why don't you go to that?
It's right along the passageway, so
To
in
the
order to
back
get it
parking
to be
lot.
wide enough to get to the parking lot,
Uh-huh.
it has to be disassembled,
Yeah.
and then we want to use it again on that south side.
That's a narrow little alley.
It's
right?
too narrow
Yeah.
for that kind of ingress, egress.
Is there any opportunity for landscaping along that east side of the project? I think you touched on that.
There is landscaping planters
Okay.
along the east side. Along the back building, you'll see towards the parking lot, there's planters, 3
Right over there?
planters. Yep. All along that major side of the
Because
building.
right now the stone wall comes along here, and then it makes a right and goes on to Chapala Street. Or
Okay.
Ortega. So we're going to basically let it run.
Right.
all the way along the
And
south.
only other question, you mentioned a service bay as being somewhat sacrosanct, and explain that, please.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when we were first looking at possible tenants, when Volkswagen left to take out the space, when everybody walked into the service bay building, they got excited because the vault of the ceiling and the height of the ceiling, it's a very cool space. And so we're going to take that space and turn it into like 3 kind of loft type units. They're going to be very different than what you see in the rest of the project. So basically we're taking out each one of those openings, cutting it down, and making that like a penetration into the unit. And so it's going to be more of an industrial loft type space.
Thank you very much.
And we're actually repurposing part of the metal building to the right and using the fencing and the gating out of that material.
All right. Okay. Other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I have
Commissioner
a
Jones.
question. I understand that this is an AUD priority overlay project. And when I was going through the Planning Commission minutes, I noticed that one of the points made there was that since residential parking is not required or being provided, the per unit cost would be lower so that the market price would be lower. Are you in fact representing to us that all the housing units in this project will be on the market for less than the rental rates for comparable units with parking?
I mean, Mayor Lodge asked me that question, and my response is the market's the market. So if it's of less value because there's not reserved parking for that unit, then that's what the market dictates. But we're going to have corner units, a great paseo, and maybe that increases the value of those units. It all depends on the market.
But also, just for the record, you guys didn't make that statement.
No.
It was made by somebody on the commission.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a
Vice Chair House.
follow-up question on the landscaping along the driveway. Is there planters, as I think required in the ordinance about landscaping along a driveway?
We have a 3.5 foot wide strip. It depends on whether or not that needs to be an ADA passage or not.
So that's not been resolved yet.
No.
But you have, do we have a
Yeah, let's look at that spot.
close-up view?
You want to go to the site plan now. Yeah, so that passage there is 3.5 feet.
On each side of the driveway?
Yes.
Okay, so you would only need an access way on one side, is that correct?
That's to be determined, because we have handicap parking on both sides of the parking lot, so I don't know if we need 2 passages or not, but we're showing that 3.5 feet in case that's required for ADA access on that side of the driveway as well. If not, we'll make it planting.
And do I recall that the ordinance requires the board to, the commission to waive the requirement for landscaping?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, yes, that is true. So I apologize. I read that as planting, so I found that it met the landscape design standards for parking. If, when they get to the building phase, if that changes, then it would need to be a waiver of just alternative landscape design standards for parking lot. When they return for final, they would need to have a final or a detailed landscape plan. But we prefer that that action be made as part of your action today so that we wouldn't have to return, well, it's not noticed for that. So I think if that were to change, then they would have to come back for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions? Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. This is kind of related to the Planning Commission discussion about the noise issue. Could you just show us the elevation that faces towards State, which is probably, who knows where the noise is going to come from in the future? I mean, it could be all around, so we have to get used to that. But I was just curious if you could show us that elevation facing,
The loft space, no, the one that faces State Street.
yeah, that faces State Street.
That's it. No, that's up, no, the one above it, Alex. There it is.
Yeah, that one.
If anything, it'll be the 3 urban loft spaces. They're the ones that face in the direction of the parking lot and then the Wildcat beyond that.
Because there's another building between,
Right.
at least for now, between, okay.
That, the other is set back from there. Okay, and then could we just look at the floor plans related to these particular, where the balconies are especially?
There are no balconies, but there's like
A little,
space, yeah.
it's a little,
Julia, about
is that what it is? Yeah, I was curious just
No,
what,
it's,
there. So they
you
are,
wanting the floor plan of the lower level?
no, the upper level.
Oh, okay. My mistake.
It's just kind of looking where the bedrooms were versus the public spaces. Okay, great, thank you.
I'm sorry, I just got, I think it's split around there. But the loft, where's the, is there a loft?
Yeah.
Loft? Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
So
that's-
we pulled the exterior wall in, what is it, like 15 feet or so? So each one of these spaces has an outdoor patio, basically.
Gotcha. And then, can you go back to the elevations? This is one of my questions too, of the materials when you, so I guess the first question is, when we go to the industrial building, or the industrial loft building, what has changed in that design from the last time we saw it?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay. So where are you were mentioning reusing some of the material?
Yeah, so there's a corrugated wall that's 6 feet tall that'll go full length of that recessed opening. 'Cause that opening's pushed back like 15 feet or so underneath that rectangular cutout or square cutout. So that corrugated metal barrier at 6 feet of height can go all the way across, and within that there'll be the gate. So this is corrugated metal, and corrugated metal.
And do you have a section through that?
No.
Okay. And then can you go to the floor plan and show the first floor again on that? Just start trying to make sure I'm understanding it.
Yeah, so that corrugated metal fence is out here,
Okay.
and then the exterior wall of the building is going to be here. with
Gotcha.
like
So the corrugated metal fence is sort of like the front yard?
it's a privacy wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
If I could add on to
Yeah.
that, the glazing above that, is that in line with the fence, or is that also 15 feet back?
All the glazing is pulled back 15 feet.
Okay,
yeah.
so that square opening
It's
is
open
all
air.
open?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to have skylights above them, but it's going to feel like it's an open air space.
Okay.
So it's really, the lower plane is the corrugated and the whole other plane is back where it is right now?
Yeah, we like a storefront assembly,
Gotcha.
basically.
Okay. Okay. Other questions? Other commissioners? I had a couple more. So, the electric bike scooter question or encouragement suggestion from the planning commission. Has there been any thought about that?
We're
Yeah.
completely open to that.
Okay. All right. And then the noise consideration question, what was your thoughts on that? And especially with regards to the industrial building, for how to try to keep the noise out as much as possible.
I mean, we're going to be, how do you open this thing up, Al? Just do the overall. Do an overall. Yeah, so here's the Wildcat, and the patio's here. My office is right here. And it's not that noisy, I'm sorry.
Do you work till 1?
Sometimes I work. But it's like, they have the patio here, but it's not that bad. And so I don't know. I know the owner is concerned about whether or not that's going to impact the neighbors to the point where it's going to impact your business. But I don't know. I don't see it as a concern personally.
Okay. And is there anything opening wise that you're thinking about in terms of like glazing or other things that what you're thinking is going to seal against that?
Yeah,
Or?
it's going to be like, dual glazed. It's going to be a very high quality window, whereas, in the Fithian building, it's these old wooden double hungs that, if someone needs to close a window to cut out the noise, like I say, it's part of living downtown as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. All right. And then I had a question regarding the wall in the rendering. It's the wall in Chapala that's the darker colored, and I'm wondering first,
Yeah.
the inset. What is that material-wise, or?
Yeah, like in the drive-by, it wasn't rendered as a different color. It was going to be the same sandstone.
Okay, so that's basically a sandstone infill using the wall sandstone.
Right.
In that niche.
Scroll down there, Al. They're right there, yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Colors are a little hot in this rendering here.
Yeah.
Usually it's like
And yeah, what was your thinking on that?
Just to kind of differentiate the mass between the two sections, and we're going to have a lot of stone. And so there's a question earlier from the board about, where else can we use the stone besides the wall? And I don't want it just to be, something that's stuck in a contrived location. So I thought if I pulled that section and made that section stone, maybe that could be a place to utilize the additional material.
Okay. All right. That's it for my questions. Any other questions? Before we
Chair-
go to cons?
Chair Grumba.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Oh, so I was just asking questions regarding Planning Commission, but I do have some other
Oh,
questions.
okay,
so-
great. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What are they? Okay, so these are kind of random questions, but what is your idea for the texture on the walls? Or smooth, cat's paw?
Just the classic Santa Barbara smooth finish.
Okay. And then, have you considered any kind of more solid railing that could help with not only with acoustic and visual privacy? Maybe some kind of could even be a steel laser cut design kind of thing, thick.
On the
heavy-
Wildcat side, or?
Well, I don't know, around the building, I just think this is an issue that we have to think about now, because people will be sitting out on balconies or, putting their surfboards out there. So I just was wondering, had you thought about that? This, of course, is the classic approach that you've taken, which is beautiful, but is that anything that was thought about?
I haven't thought about that.
Okay. And then, could you talk about you have tile on here shown at the base, and what kind of, can you talk about what you're thinking about there in terms of this type
It's
of tile?
to be determined, just something of color, probably not as bright as what's shown right there. But that's just something a place to introduce some color and texture, something that's hand painted and in keeping with the architectural style. But if we do it, it'll be once again segregated based on where it is on the project. Like right here, it's building 2, and so whatever tile occurs as an infill on building 2, it'll be that tile, and there's opportunity underneath the arcade on building 1, for example. We do something different there, and so it all depends on where it's going. But that's something that we haven't really worked out in terms of a selection yet.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
So gentlemen, access to the various paseos, I noticed in the illustrations there looked to be like wrought iron fencing or gating. Is that the plan, or what are your thoughts about?
The original romantic concept was to have it open, but for that space to be dedicated as residential open space that's required, it has to have a barricade to keep the public out of it and make it private for residential use only. So it kind of defeated the point of having these open paseos that you would see like in the El Paseo or something, but it was required for us to be able to dedicate that space as residential open space.
Yeah, my only thought, what I just saw in the illustration, it looked a little institutional. That would be just some way to make it a little more engaging or welcoming.
Yeah.
Was sort of my observation.
We can definitely do that.
All right. Other questions? Any questions? All right. Let's roll into comments.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, I like this project when it first came, and I think between our 2 hearings and this one and the Planning Commission, I think this is a home run. I think it's exactly what's needed for downtown. It's really sensitive, it's beautifully organized. I'm a big fan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Vice Chair House.
Well, it's always nice to see a project that there's not much to complain about.
Come up with something.
Oh, we will.
Yes, just you wait. No, I'm
just
glad to
preliminary.
see you still have the same smiling face on the right end of the Chapala Street elevation.
You're the only one that sees that.
I know it, but one of those umbrellas is even winking
If you
at
wanted
me.
a face, I can give you a face.
One of those awnings. I would pick up on the question from Commissioner Ensberg about the balconies, that those are great on an office building, but when you have apartments and people have white plastic furniture and they have hibachis and they have their surfboards and stuff, it would be nice to come up with some solution that is not as transparent as Pickett's 4 inches on center, just to kind of conceal view of that kind of stuff.
Can they hang laundry? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. Well, in Europe, that's often very attractive. Across the alleyway, across the Paseos.
Stiffeners, that's what the
And then I
stiffeners
made this
are for.
comment before, but I would like to see that you come up with a detail so that we don't have your typical weak screed and 6 to 10 inches of foundation showing. So.
All right. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I like this project, and I found your presentations very persuasive, and I will support it. On the issue of sound, I do think that the soundscape of downtown is different than it is in other parts of the city. And the city is trying to encourage development downtown, so it is inevitable that the soundscape of downtown will change. And I don't think that's a valid reason to stop this. The only other comment I have is that I'm not as, I don't have the same faith in the invisible hand of the market to affect prices, so good luck.
So I think it's a beautiful project. You guys, as a team, have put a lot of great thought into it, and I think that's great. The one question I have, and it's more a business case myself, as we see typical projects like this, with an emphasis on the retail presence. And I sort of really question the need for additional retail space in Santa Barbara, as opposed to perhaps the greater need for housing. The project itself is an excellent project. I just really do question whether we couldn't put more emphasis into the housing side of the equation versus retail.
All right, thank you. Any other, Commissioner Ensberg, do you want to?
Yes, definitely. I just want to say thank you so much, and I am very excited about this project. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I think you just have addressed so many things. The adaptive reuse of that building in the back, the reuse of this metal material. The 4 buildings, the Paseos, it's quintessential Santa Barbara, and I just really take my hat off to you, and I think you've done a spectacular job. I love how you're a good neighbor, in my opinion, that it is making the end of Ortega, bringing that up and adding that arcade there, pulling State Street back into that area, plus the Chapala side as well. So I really acknowledge that as well. And about the noise, I think we all, as a community, have got to come together and be good existing neighbors and be good new neighbors. So wherever you are in the equation, be sensitive to each other and work together as a neighborhood to bring out the best. And I think this project is perfect for what we're looking for, trying to get more housing in the downtown area. The heights, everything just seems perfect. I would, as I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, maybe we're witnessing the birth of a future landmark, given another 100 years or so. But
You'll be around there.
So
We all will, right?
that's how I feel about it. And we talk a lot about poetry all the time. And what I want to say is, we know what a skilled architect you are, Mr. Meany, and artist as well. So I really want to encourage you and others to, have your thumbprint on there. How do we know that this was you?
There will be a bus, Taste for the Land.
So, yeah, so you're,
In a secret place.
so you're, well, there's this cartouche here.
Tastefully planned.
The cartouche is there, and just, you know, sort of the thumbprint, your personal imprint on it. I just really encourage that. I think you've just done a spectacular job in, you know, bringing out the quintessential elements, but, you know, feel free, in my opinion, to bring out more of who you are in that expression. And then finally, I would say just, you know, thinking about those railings, if, you know, maybe there is a way of using like a thick, you know, 1-inch steel, and there's just a million things you could do with laser cut.
Yeah.
And that could help in what Commissioner House was saying, Vice Chair Commissioner House was saying, and and it may help with the noise, you know, if it was a thick piece of steel there, it could help with that, just to kind of help mitigate that. And I think it could be a very unique piece, you know, that we aren't seeing a lot of. And of course, you could do just about anything design-wise. It could be Baroque, it could be anything. So, and then again, on the tile, I really would encourage something really cool, inspired by, you know, maybe Monterey tile or whatever you might design. So, I think that's all I wanted to say, but to the poetry. And thank you again. It's a beautiful, beautiful project, and I look forward to seeing it realized.
Commissioner Willie.
I've got something to say.
He hates it.
Yeah, it's eminently not supportable. No, Mr. Meany, I consider you to be a modern master, having a firm grasp on the language of Santa Barbara's architecture, and this is a great example of that work. I like how each of the buildings, while they seem cohesive, are individual. And the mix and of the various components make it romantic. I've always loved that cartouche. I'm glad that you introduced it, and I'm glad you kept it. I think that is a great nod to your family's history, and will contribute to the story on the street as people walk by this building. And it will only take 49 years to become a landmark. You don't have to wait 100 years. And I agree with all of the other comments of the commissioners. I think it's eminently supportable, and it's a beautiful building.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, and the only thing, a couple quick things to add, as you go forward for final, because it's obvious that's where it's going, but as you go forward for final, I'm assuming that things like wrought iron balconies and those things will get fleshed out. They're not going to all be the same and all
That's
around.
where it gets fun.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm sure all those details will get come to life. I also wanted to, yes, in looking at the story poles, that was very helpful and it was very reassuring. It's going to fit in, that it's going to fit in great within the neighborhood. And thinking about it, walking around Chapala and just think of all the buildings on it, I think you might have when this is built, the best looking Chapala building. So I think it's, and I do not say that lightly. So you do. You've done a fantastic job with this. And I think this is really a beautiful example of getting through this process very well and coming with an incredible piece of art at the end. So, and actually, speaking of which, I had a quick question. So what's the number of reviews that this project's had?
It's the third one here, isn't it?
How many times have we seen this?
Mr. Chair, so it came to you as a concept. They did a pre-application review team first, and HLC
third and one
third.
PC.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah, yeah. So I just
Design a
wanted to
good
actually,
building and it's easy.
I just wanted to hold this up as an example of a building that got a height exception, broke the height limit, and did a great job getting straight through. And others might have a lot harder situational and other things involved, but I think this is a great example of getting through our process really well with a great design. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on was just the commercial versus residential. And I think, in hearing my fellow commissioners, I do get and agree that we need housing, but at the same time, I think in the downtown core, it is, in general, as a general rule, proper to at least front the public street with something that is public, whether it's commercial, office, whatever, something public as opposed to a private residence on these major streets, especially downtown in the core. It makes it visually an appealing pedestrian experience. I think you've done an amazing job of getting kind of both and, because you went pedestrian on the inner block where it's not meant to be a commercial, it shouldn't automatically be this public space. So it's more private and allows for housing on the ground level. So I do think, and you didn't give any space to automobiles in the building itself and the footprint, which makes it a very pedestrian-friendly area. So I think this, even in that typology, this is an incredible example of exactly, for the deep downtown stuff, really what we should be doing in every way. So, that would be that one little. As we get outside the core of the city, then residential on ground floor makes more sense. But,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
If I could, well, speaking of story polls and examples, I think I'd like to point out that I thought it was very effective to just use this minimal set of story polls instead of requiring every ridge line and this and that. So I think we can do that in the future, and then there's less argument about, it costs $50,000 to put up story polls and then not requiring them. So I think they were useful, and minimal is fine.
Great. Good point. All right, so it's sounding like this is obviously all the details and everything is going to be coming back and developed as they come back, but it's sounding everything has been nothing but extremely positive.
Like I said, you guys have been great. Our planner's been great. I mean, the process has been very positive. The project's gotten better as we've waded through it, and it's been enjoyable.
Yeah. Thank you.
It works.
Yeah, especially with very talented architects and landscape architects. So it's seeming like where we're going. One note I would add to this, because of the noise discussion as well, and this is going to be going forward with all projects in general, especially the more downtown ones. As you work into your details, as you think about those things, it was mentioned the balcony side of things, but for noise, but also visual, but also on just how your construction details, if you can be thinking about that, because it is a thing, and it is a thing that people are going to have to live with. So, all right. So, in general, I don't know that we need to make really any of these particular finding or statements if we're ready for design approval. I'm sure all these details will be coming back to us and more.
Mr. Chair, I would just like it to be part of the motion that is to return in progress to review details.
Sounds good. So I'll summarize then to review to be returning in progress as you go towards final with details including the weep screeds, the balcony details, and design development, particularly looking at visually screening and visually and/or sound screening at the balconies. Details about sound, mitigation and assemblies, and obviously we'll also see tile and other artistry details developed as well. And the commission is finding that this is a excellent, exquisite example of a project, and has done a great job working with the site and developing this project.
Mr. Chair, I will make that motion for a project design approval.
All right.
Second.
And I think you're going to have to make the findings as well.
Oh, yes. Okay. Project compatibility findings, consistency with design guidelines. This is certainly consistent with all of our design guidelines applicable to the location of the project within the city. Certainly compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood. It's exemplary design. The mass, bulk, height, and scale fit right in with the Paseo Nuevo project across the street, and it is consistent. Number 4, sensitivity to adjacent landmarks. I'm not sure if there are any landmarks close by, but
Right next door.
right next door, okay, yes, there are. But yes, the architecture is consistent and sensitive. The public views of the ocean and mountains, it's consistent with the existing development on that street, and so it is not a negative. The use of open space and landscaping has been well conceived, and there's very nice landscaping and open spaces on the project. Do we have another set of findings, or is that it? Okay. Okay.
All right. And it is
The second agrees with
agree to
that.
Okay. Under discussion, I just remembered in that, there one more item just wanted to mention, and throw it in here as part of discussion. One of the members of the public had commented about the 4th story and pushing towards State Street more. And I think in general, that isn't that's not a decent idea to go to the largest mass being on State Street. But the other aspect is a corner building, and so corner buildings also tend to hold the corner in a stronger way. And I think this is very much appropriate in that, and their working out of it was appropriate for even having a little bit taller on the corner as opposed to towards State Street. So I just wanted to mention that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Since you brought up that public comment, the suggestion of canopy trees on the south side, I guess it was.
Yeah, I made note of that. I think it's a good comment.
Okay,
I'll look
great.
at that for just the cooling and the microclimate,
Yeah.
help that would be
Yeah.
for those patios. It's a nice idea.
Yeah, we can find another location for those palms.
Yeah.
They're great trees.
I think we're good. Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion, Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I just wanted to mention, too, that maybe there's an opportunity in those walls that are where the loft units are. Possibly those could be treated in some kind of acoustical way. Those outer garden walls with the cladding of this corrugated steel, maybe think about that. Might be a good way to
Good idea.
help control the noise.
Reflect.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. In that case, let's have a roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Excellent work.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And Chair Grumbine,
All right.
if you could just announce the 10-day appeal.
Oh,
period,
yes,
please.
and there's a 10-day appeal period to City Council for this item. All right. So, does anyone want a break, or are we good to charge forward? Okay. All right, if we're good to charge forward, do we have the applicant in the room for item 4? All right. All right. Okay, so now we are on to item 4. Welcome. This is a new item. This is a one-time application consultation. This project site contains a Spanish colonial revival residence constructed between 1933 and 1935, is listed on the city's historic resources inventory. Proposal for a new detached 2-story structure consisting of a 751 square foot 3-car garage with a 722 square foot gym and a 310 square foot balcony above. This is a one-time pre-application consultation. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings would be required for a project design approval. And there was a historic significance report. And there was also a public comment. So with that, welcome. If you would introduce yourselves for the record, or yourself.
Thank you. My name is Will Salford. I'm the designer of the project. I kind of do a lot of different things in regards to...
If you could press the right there.
Thank you. Gotcha. My name is Will Soffren. I'm the designer of the project. I've been working with the family who owns the property since they purchased the property 3 years ago. It's been quite the endeavor, I'm sure everyone. 3 years of trying to move into a 100-year-old home. But what has happened over the 3 years since the homeowner purchased the property was that their love has only grown for it, and they've committed more and more to making sure that this home is around for another 100 years.
Great. And I should have mentioned at the beginning, so you'll have 15 minutes, and if it takes longer, that's okay. But and if you can walk us through the plans, and then we'll go into public comment, and then to the commission for question and answers.
Sounds great. How about I just jump right into...
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've got a site plan right here. This is Mission Ridge. We've got the front of the existing primary structure, and what we're proposing is to do a 3-car garage right here. There'll be a driveway that will create access to the garage. This right here is a swimming pool that has been permitted, and I'd like to sort of how we got here was the homeowner actually had already applied for a special ADU permit, which we achieved. The special ADU is supposed to go here, and the pool was here. Again, understanding how much his love has grown for the property, one conflict is that the primary structure only has a single-car garage, and they plan on making this their home where they're going to have their children, and a 1-car garage doesn't really do much for today's modern living standards. Additionally, there's very limited parking space right here in the existing driveway, and the homeowner would prefer to not have visitors park on Mission Ridge. So the objective was, even though they had gotten the special ADU permit, to abandon that permit and instead, in a near similar footprint, build a 2-story structure that is a 3-car garage, which would then allow them to accommodate more guest parking on the property. What we've done is we've pushed the pool south a little bit, and the garage was located where it was so that we could stay outside of the, behind the 30-foot front yard setback. Really, there wasn't a lot of places with the shape of the lot to put a garage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip down to, I think context is most valuable. And I wanted to show you, this is the north elevation, which is the front facade, because I think it's really important to keep in context how the new structure relates to the primary structure. It was our intention to we're benefiting from the natural topography where the house is up on a higher grade and the lot slopes down as you go further west and south. So that really helped us make sure that the new garage would be inferior to the primary structure. Also, we did like the original element here, but for the gable roof, but instead opted for a hip roof to match the 2nd-story addition that was done by Edward and Plunkett back in the 30s. We thought sort of having that differentiation from the original structure was very important to consider. On the rear side, or the south side of the new proposed structure, we have a roof-covered porch, and the concept came from the roof-covered arcade that is on the primary structure, again, trying to carry certain elements and traits over into the design. Jumping back to the front, I'd like to point out that there's this beautiful curved stucco staircase that leads from the garage up to the kitchen in the primary structure. We thought it would be a nice detail to emulate that and have that happen on the new garage. These are the east and west elevations. This is our west elevation, so I'm looking at the primary structure. And to be considerate of the neighbors, we've made sure that there's no windows on the west facade of the garage. We thought that trying to minimize sort of any visual impact looking over into neighbors' properties was important to consider. I understand that there is the porch, but we just kept that in mind. Bear in mind the garage is at its closest point 46 feet from any property line. This would be the east facade of the garage. So if I was in the primary structure looking at the garage, this is the relationship of the two structures. And the Juliet balconies are another detail that we've taken from the primary structure to sort of emulate and ensure the compatibility of the new garage. What I'm here for is I believe that input is an important element in any project, and I thought it would be great to come to you at this point of our design where everything is still malleable to see if we could get some feedback and some suggestions as to how we've started and how the commission thinks that we could continue on with this project so that it's a great element of the property. That's,
And do you want to walk us through the rest of your pages as well?
yes, sir. Sorry.
No worries.
So we've done the site plan. This is the garage floor plan, and we have the staircase going up. And this is going to be a bathroom on the ground level for the swimming pool. The swimming pool will be located on the east side of the structure. This is the second floor, and I called it a gym. It's probably going to be more actually of an art studio. The homeowner is a big painter. And so we've got the stairs that come up. There's a half bathroom and then the covered porch. Our plan is, in regards to materials, we would very much like to use the exact same materials and architectural details of the primary structure. The clay tiled roof, the stucco window boxes right here. There's one that's existing on the north facade of the primary structure. We also would like to match the garage doors and have our windows and doors be the same as the primary structure so that we can, again, carry over that theme. Let's see, I know I jumped through these. This is just sort of a section detail showing the interior of the car and showing how it relates to the structure. I included these detail drawings of the current primary structure just to in regards to the vicinity map, this is the entrance going onto the property from Mission Ridge. I'm going to jump ahead. I read the public comment letter. I don't know if I can address one of the items in that then was one of the comments was that a driveway entrance to the garage could have been from the west side of the property, and we just didn't even consider that, one, because of grade, and two, the negative impact that would have on this property. If everything that we're doing is changing inside the existing stone walls and the gate, and so we don't want to affect the visual experience for the public on the exterior. This image number 3, I'm going to go back up to the vicinity map. This is where number 3 is. This is where the primary structure is. So 3 is looking at where the garage will be. And I'd just like to point out you can't see the roof of the primary structure or the garage or where the garage should be. So I think that us locating the garage where it is on the lot also means that there will be no impact whatsoever visually for the public on the right of way. This is the primary structure. So these are sort of what we're looking to sort of finish. You can see an example of the Juliet balcony, the tile, the way the eaves finish on the structure. That's
Okay. Does that complete your presentation?
yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, so we don't have anyone in the room, so there's no one in the room for public comment. Let's go to virtual public comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So at this time, I don't see anyone joining by Zoom either. However, we did receive one letter from Helen Koklelis, and with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grump.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House.
I did study the plans, and with that lower picture we're looking at, if I recall correctly, there are a number of improvements to the house that you're also proposing, including that ungainly thing in the lower left of that picture there being removed, and several other windows and stuff like that changed. Do you want to go over those real quickly?
Yes, those improvements are not part of this application.
Okay.
These images are from the historical report. The structure, right now, if I go back to, I think this would probably be most helpful. So these are the elevations showing, I think, yeah, so we've got our existing and proposed. And I think going back to the west facade, you'll see there was that awful bay window. And then there wasn't really the symmetry, so the homeowner, we took these exact same French doors and brought them down to here so that we had that beautiful symmetry.
So you have yet to apply for design review for those changes, or what?
Those changes did not require presentation of the HLC. They were administrative approval.
Because it's returning it to a originally approved.
It's hard to say what was original because the original plans were lost, and so when we came in, it definitely, when we started to open up and do our exploratory investigation, it's really hard to say. It doesn't seem logical that what was there would have been original. And the construction sort of suggests that maybe the house had a certain number of years of being built with different builders. We took a lot of inspiration from walking around the city, and that's how we came to this decision here.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner Butler.
Yeah, kind of dovetails on this, because you want to use what's existing materials in the current residence and apply that to the new, and then seeing that, it's like, well, how consistent are the materials?
Microphone.
How consistent are the materials on the existing residence? Because just what we've just gone through already, it looks like there's going to be some changes, so.
Right. As far as in regards to existing materials, it's the primary structure is white stucco with the red clay tile roof, and then we've got the light patterns for the existing casement windows and the type of French doors. Those are the elements that we plan to bring over. So does it add clear if I say, like, we want to emulate the texture of the white stucco? We want to make sure
More
that,
the materials and the basic elements of doors and windows?
yes.
Okay, and can you actually go to that, pictures of that, just to, or your photographs, and kind of zoom in a little bit? Kind of point some of that out.
Yeah, so let's. Sorry, these pictures are pretty blurry and probably not going to be. It's really hard to see right here.
Juliet balcony at grade.
Yeah, that was very. And actually, when they had gotten the house, the bottom of the Juliet balcony was buried in the plant bed, which just. So you can imagine how much rot we found in that. It is really hard to tell right here. Let's see.
Or we can see better pictures when you come back with a.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can make sure that I have very clear pictures to show how each element
That's,
is where we're borrowing from and how we're applying that element.
I think that's where we're trying to get to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, other questions? Questions? Okay, all right, so why don't we go into comments? This is a one-time pre-application consultation. So we're just wanting to give some general direction of what we generally think of the project. Who wants to start?
Mr. Chair?
Vice Chair House.
Since nobody else spoke up. I'll jump in. First of all, I think it's an appropriate improvement. The nature of the house is it's got a composition, but the nature of what you're building is inherently symmetrical. So it doesn't really have that poetry that the house might have. But another detail that you might borrow from the house is that gable-ended wall dormer that's over the existing one-car garage. So at least kind of
Love that.
breaks up that front facade. Could be on, I guess it wouldn't be on both sides because you have a porch on the back side, but
What if we did it on the east and west?
I don't know. I'll leave that to you as just a suggestion of something to help break that up.
And actually, do you have a photo of that? Just so.
It's on his elevations, which are very thorough and appreciated. Yeah,
There's
there it
the
is.
photo of
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Got it.
the only tricky part, but but I love the idea, is that the plate line this is the kitchen of the house.
Uh-huh.
The plate line is actually, I think it's 72 inches, maybe 60 inches. So that gable has this great effect where the window is.
Yeah.
But I think that our plate line is at a normal plate line height in the proposed structure.
And actually, why don't you, if you can go to section and tell us about your plate heights, that if we can go back into questions for a little bit here.
Sorry, I'm a Mac person, so.
We forgive you for being a Mac person.
Here we go. So we've got the garage. We're trying to give a lot of room in the garage. The homeowner is a surfer, so his priority was being able to make sure that he could pull into the garage and have a surfboard on top of his car. So he wanted to make sure there was a lot of ceiling height. The plan for the second story would be to vault the ceiling so that we can take advantage of the volume that's added through the vaulting. I think we have looks like a 9-foot ceiling or 9-foot plate line above the finished floor for the structure. So if we were to use the same windows, this is where the windows work in regards to the same size windows that are in the primary structure. So adding that gable would be tricky, but I'm very happy to explore it.
And the window doesn't necessarily have to extend up into the gable, but
Right.
it's just a thought to
And
break up.
and a following question, what's the plate height for, and I know it varies, but what are the plate heights in the main residence for the
The-
second floor?
The plate heights for the main level, so the ground level plate height, you have a 99-inch ceiling. The main level, you have it.
So, sorry, I'm a little slow on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
8.4.
8.4,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to
Yeah.
just kind of show you where the plate heights are in the primary structure. So in this room right here, in this wing, the plate heights are at 10 feet. If we go into these rooms, this is a bedroom right here, the plate height is at the 8-foot 4-inch. In the kitchen, I think it's 72, it's 60 or 72. It's very low. If we go up, this is an upper level addition that was done by Edward and Plunkett. The plate heights are at 76, I believe. So we've got a lot of fluctuation.
76,
Oh,
so,
it's just over 6 feet. That would be 6 feet 4 inches.
okay. So, and I'll just jump into a comment with that because all the tiedness. So I think part of the issue, if you go to your elevations, it seems like part of it is a slight scale issue where the original house or the historic house has this sort of built into a hill effect, and there are lower plates, and so it doesn't read as sort of big and tall. And I think you have a functional reason why you want a higher plate for the lower level, and that makes sense. And I think, but part of the reason, aside from the one gable with the big bedroom that has a 10-foot, that's only one piece, right? So
Right.
I think part of the challenge is your overall big height is just feels a little too big. So maybe that upper level plate can drop down, and you can get the volumes to work within and make up for that. But I think that's part of what your struggle is that on the left, the historic house really sort of fits into the hill kind of as a compilation. Then you have this one big structure here that you have. So anyway, that's just a plate comment. But
May I ask a question at this point?
sure.
Okay, I think that is a great suggestion. What if I were to lower the plate down to match the average plate height in the primary structure? So we'd go down to, say, 8 feet 4 inches instead of the 9 feet, and then I could add those gables. It would.
So in general, for Historic Landmarks Commission, what we do is we will give you comments on what we see isn't working and maybe some suggestions on things to try.
Okay.
But on Single Family Design Board, they are more flexible and they pull out their pens more. we keep our pens in our pockets, or or just
Yeah, or
writing.
don't have a pen.
Or don't have a pen. And they took away our paper, so we can't draw.
We don't design it for you, in other
so we don't
words.
design it for you. So we might give you some suggestions to look at it and to test out ideas and try it, but it's going to be up to you to really do it. And I think that looking at the main house as a guide for some of these, and you're already doing it for the doors and windows, so that's a good start. And some of your plaster and your tile, I would say, assuming as well that you're looking at the slopes and you're matching slopes.
Oh, yes, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the roof slope is a 5/12, just like the roof slope on the primary structure.
So yeah, that's good. Kind of looking at those things is a good starting point. But yeah, so in terms of that, we'll give you what the commissioners will give you their input on, and give you maybe ideas to try out. But that's as far as we're going to go. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
We'll go Commissioner Drury, then Vice Chair House.
Yeah, so you are suggesting that the new building should be more subservient to the main structure, basically, by lowering the plate height.
Or even just equal to it in terms of that.
Okay, thank you.
Because I think right now it's the first ground floor, 9'6". That's taller than the first, and I know that it's up on a hill, so it has an advantage, but it's just a taller massing, and then on top of that is even taller for the, yeah. All right, Commissioner. Vice Chair House, and then Commissioner Uli.
So, yeah, I agree with Chair Grumbein's points. And, usually it's a trade-off. If you've got volume ceilings, then you can go with a lower plate. So I would certainly support lowering that upper floor. And then your mention of a higher plate height downstairs for surfboards on top of the car and stuff like that. Nobody has asked yet, how tall are those garage doors? Are they like 8 feet?
Those garage doors are 8 feet.
Yeah. So I would just explore any way you can get that down. I mean, plenty of people pull into their garage with 7-foot high doors. So if you had 7.5-foot doors, and you don't need another 2.5 feet above that to the ceiling. So any of that you can get down would help.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Commissioner Uli.
Generally I agree with those comments. This would make this garage building smaller, be more respectful of the existing building. Also, if the garage building is the only thing that is in front of us, then your drawings should represent just the garage building and not the work you're doing on the main house, because now our interest is piqued. We want to know what else are you doing on the main house except for just replacing those windows. And I realize that some of these minor things are administratively approved by the architectural historian who's on staff. But at any point along the way, we can ask to have all that stuff brought in front of us. So I wouldn't give us more than you're really wanting us to see. Otherwise, we're going to get really curious. But to the degree that you can make the garage building smaller in scale, I think we'll be more successful.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'll throw in a few more then. So now looking at the two, it's sort of a Monterey style, what you've done on the one side where you're stacking wood posts on top of each other with so it's a 2-story balconied with the holding the roof, which is nice. When I try to think of Edwards and Plunkett's in this, I don't know if I've known them to do Monterey style. Not that you have to do it just with Edwards and Plunkett, but one thing I have known them to do is big porches or big overhangs with giant beams that go out and hold a balcony that does the kind of thing. So you might even be able to eliminate your posts in the bottom and have massive beams going out. You might not have as big an overhang, but that could be studied. So that's one thing. Your stair was another. I don't know about just copying what that's a very Edwards and Plunkett swoopy stair. I don't know if it was Edwards and Plunkett, but that's their curved plaster stair is a sort of iconic move they do in at least a good number of times. Maybe think of a play off of that, or oftentimes the most successful buildings working with a cool historic building, great historic building, is to look at a detail and play off of it a little bit instead of just copying it one-to-one, because the buildings are definitely separate and different, and and it might feel like you're sort of cheapening the house details by just doing exactly the literal copy. That might be worth looking at as what might be a tweak on that stair. And that goes for the wrought iron as well. There's a very particular, strong, robust wrought iron. I saw other wrought iron too in the house. So it might be good to do a study and maybe play off of something instead of just doing an exact replica. The other thing is, if it's historic, you're going to find it's 28 inches high or 30 inches high. It's not, it's perfect height to kill people as they
lean back over.
Exactly. So it's not going to work out anyways. You're going to have to change the proportions, and especially for an intricate railing like this. So looking at all the examples that you have to work with and then playing off of them could be a good way of making it feel like it's part of it, and works well with it, but it's not exactly trying to just copy and paste things. And so any other comments that want to be added? Otherwise, I'll try to take a shot at summarizing these. Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't comment on that rear elevation, and that was something that kind of concerned me. But of course, it's always a challenge when you're looking at CAD drawings because they just don't have the romance that the hand drawings do. You can overcome that somewhat with 3D renderings and stuff like that. But I would really pay some attention to. And if you get the scale of the whole building down, that will help that rear elevation as well. And are those doors 7 foot or?
They are 7-foot doors, sir.
It just looks to me as if your railing height is reflecting 36 inches.
It
instead
is
of
reflecting.
42. Yeah, and you're going to have to go 42.
Right.
Which is a horrible scale, but proportion.
And if you wait too long, it'll probably go up to like 52.
Yeah. Next code cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, to tag on to with the balcony discussion, it might be that you switch and you don't do wood post. You may go with something stronger on the bottom, like plaster, and then do wood on top. But start really study a lot of, especially Edwards and Plunkett's, and how they treat balconies, how they treat wall conditions, corner conditions, things like that. And I think the more you collect of photos and scans from books and other things, the better it'll be, the easier it'll be to work through this process. So I think that's kind of also a good kind of piece.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure. Yeah.
On that rear elevation, you've got 3 doors, but you don't have the same issue of garage doors, and you've got 3 spaces and they need to be equal and stuff like that. So you've got some more liberty to play with the rear elevation and make it more interesting and in the character of the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe asymmetry.
Yeah.
Look at some asymmetry at least as a point of departure, like the main house. Okay. All right. So if I can summarize. I think overall in all, I didn't hear any, aside from the height issue and bringing it down and breaking up the mass a little bit, I think the general idea of this footprint doesn't seem to be bothering anyone in the location. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So your general site location and your general footprint seem appropriate as a project and to the scale of the house. The height and the plate heights need to be reworked and lowered, looking at the main house as the inspiration for plate heights, and the garage doors to be lowered if possible, to restudy to get as low as practically possible. Look at the dormers at the main house that are how do I say well, I guess dormers. That's it. There's only 1 or 2 dormers. So look at the dormers of the main house as a potential way of breaking up the mass of the roof and for adding some poetry. On the balcony side, restudy the balcony, look at examples from Edwards and Plunkett of wood balconies, as well as other types of balconies, potentially with plaster, and especially on the lower level, as a plaster possibility. Looking at the door and windows of divisions of the main house is appropriate, and make sure to incorporate those into your drawings. I see that the doors are not shown with lights, with the muntins.
There's no muntins on the doors on the original house.
And check that if you can take photos of it as well, because typically that would be very rare for that to happen. It might have been they were switched out later. But to do a study of that, so to bring back thoroughly photographed, especially the historic parts of the house, for reference, and as well as Edwards and Plunkett or similar inspirational images from other projects that are historic, and especially Edwards and Plunkett. Let's see.
May I add one more thing to the record?
Sure.
Just the Edwards and Plunkett contribution is only
that portion.
this little addition. Yeah, that's it. The rest of the primary structure is unknown.
Okay, so if you can, focus on that. But I think getting a lot of them, we'll probably be able to tell fairly quickly, and just by questions of heights and things like that, where what was at least historic. It doesn't necessarily have to be Edwards and Plunkett, but that's not a bad thing to tie to. Let's see, and look at asymmetry in your composition as well, at least some, as a potential way of breaking up the mass. Any other comments wanted to add? Landscape-wise, was there anything really proposed besides the driveway? Okay.
I mean,
Well,
the driveway, the driveway will be a separate permit.
Okay. All right. Anything else that wanted to be added? All right. So I guess those are the comments summarized. Do we want a motion to?
We do not need a formal
No, that's
motion.
it. Okay. So you clear with those comments?
I am. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Yeah.
the feedback. Thank you very much.
You're released.
See, we're not that mean.
You guys are.
All right.
We're not mean when it's a concept.
That's what we get me.
Honestly, I sit on a board down in Los Angeles, in HPOZ down there, and that's why I wanted to do the consultation, because whenever everyone comes for consultation, it's a better project for everyone.
Yeah, great.
All right. Well, we
Thank you
appreciate
for your
that.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think is that it? Anything else before we adjourn? All right. Before 3:30. Wow, look at this. All right. Thank you. All right. Meeting is adjourned.